Okay, I've been having a great time importing a bunch of IDS files because we've made the IDS import super simple, drag and drop, and it will create you the information requirements along with all of the definitions that are required if they're there. So if it's a pick list or one of certain values, etc. All of these are then managed in a central database, so you can change it in one place. You could change the rule, you could use AI to define exactly what you're checking, or change what the pick list is or the units, etc. All of that's built in, and so we kind of see this as being a massive benefit to managing those files. And then I actually just saw the use case management system from Building Smart, and it's a brilliant update. So it's now got this web page, and you can search for a use case. There's a video to share how it goes about, how you actually can use it. But inside of this use case management, the first one that I found is for the city of Vienna building permit process. And inside of this, there are a couple of Excel files and IDS files and a PDF. And I was like, oh, this could be a great example to see what it might look like and how you could represent it inside of Planoly. So the inside of that, basically that package, you've got a whole bunch of content, and inside of there you've got some Excel files, which are sort of how to use and a build up of all the properties and everything. You've got some templates, you've got an example specification which shows you, how you would go about putting the property sets and the properties and what type of the data type it is, etc., and the values, and I suppose I think it's great. I think it's really, there's amazing work going into this. There's a huge amount of excellent work, but it just kind of, it was a lot. So as in, looking at this as a spreadsheet, it kind of, it's just difficult. And I was kind of wondering how we would go about that on a project, let alone sort of as an example. And so what I tried to do, what I ended up doing was inside of Planoly, imported the requirements. So this is the list of all those requirements. I just simply used the import function and then brought in the IDS file. It brings it in. I put some of this into a folder up here. This was the first import. And you can see that this is a specification for IFC columns. And then in addition to all of the properties and them being linked out to the Building Smart data dictionary if they had a link in there. So this is the fire rating property that has a link to that specific use or the definitions that are in the Building Smart data dictionary, and along with all of the values. So here, these are the allowable values for that city of Vienna building code, whether it's load bearing or not, and etc. But then also adding these images, and that was great because inside of there was also this PDF that's got some really fantastic images in here as well. And so really what we're able to do, I just took the column as an example and brought this image in, but it's the combination that I see, which is kind of a bit easier to understand and a bit easier to maybe implement and manipulate by seeing this column specification and saying that this is how we want to define them. These are the properties that we require. And then inside of the Planoly scope module, we can open up this container of requirements and add additional definitions, whether it's about geometry and reliability, describe something, add a checklist of certain things, add document requirements, maybe placeholder documents for things. We can also add a bunch of additional properties, a bunch of additional aspects to this. We can status it, so tracking data, and instead of it just being a specification on its own, we can actually define who the team is that's responsible for this. And everything that goes on this container of requirements is tracked. We can assign dates to something, so we can start to put it in a timeline view. And in addition to that, this specific IFC, if we had it as a column and we just went into here and we said, I want to check all of the columns, we can check that task with all of these properties directly against any model that you bring in. And whether it's an IFC file or whether it's a bunch of other different files like a Revit file and so on, we can check whether that model meets those requirements, those specifications, all inside of Planoly. If you don't want to check it inside of Planoly as well, you can simply from this scope, when you've updated it and you've managed it, you can either export it as an Excel file, or you can export it as an IDS file that you can then use in other tools as well. So it's really a bunch of different ways to bring data in. And what we've seen customers tell us is that this is a much more intuitive way to see the information requirements and to also manage it in a more of a database driven approach, so that if you make a change to a property, it's a change in one place and it reflects across all of the different specifications that it is being used on. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We would love to work with anyone that is creating anything in the use case management system that is also running information delivery specifications and trying to standardize the approach. It's a fantastic database of requirements, and we hope that by representing it in a more visual and slightly more streamlined way, combined inside of a tool that you can edit it, import it, edit it, export it, assign it, schedule it, timeline, program it, and also verify it, and also store all of the, we didn't even talk about these, but the files that are created and contained. For example, if we created an IDS file and simply created one in here, this is the information delivery specification that's been created. That now is available and can be versioned and can be accessed by certain teams and permissioned. You can even have an approval and have a signature on that file, so it becomes part of somebody's contract. And all of those standards and requirements are part of that. So, and they can be seen in that machine readable form as well. So we can see it here in this XML format. Not something that I love looking at. The hope is that by seeing it in the scope and being able to define things in a much more clear way in this approach, it's easier for teams to understand what those requirements are, agree to them, and make sure that they are complying with them at whatever stage they are signing up to them. Just a few thoughts. There's pros and cons to all of these different ways. Actually, everything that I've shared with you here, you can do inside of the free tool, inside of Planoly. Most of those steps, don't count me on every single one of them, but inside of our free product, you can create IDS files, you can import an IDS file, you can complement that with the images, you can manage the properties and requirements. That's across 2 milestones. So most IDS files are actually 1 milestone, not a multiple stage of a project. You can schedule it. You would not be able to necessarily check it automatically. That is part of the paid program. But let us know if there's something you want to test, or if there's a use case that you maybe want to put into the library. That is also something of an option that we can actually put all of these use cases so that they are a combination of these spreadsheets with all of the rich data and also the images from any of the PDFs, etc., that have been created into the same place, into the same database. Yeah, multiple thoughts on that. I'm trying to be constructive, and I'm trying not to sort of sell necessarily. We really never sell Planoly. We're here to support our industry. We're trying to make things easier. And so really this is an offer. If anyone's there trying to do this and would like to partner to do it, to offer their standards to more teams around the world, we would love to do that for free. If you are struggling to work out what the IDS workflow looks like for you, we'd love to help. We'd love to share what we've found as being a better way, and maybe that could help complement what you're doing today, and we could exchange some thoughts. And if I'm talking a whole load of garble, then I apologize, and hopefully enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye for now.